What up? It's your boy Reemus and welcome back to the Superior Code, which is us figuring out the superior versions of ourselves as men and women. And the topic of today's video is the fact that a woman naturally submits to a man that she trusts. She naturally submits to a man that's worth it, and she naturally will submit to a man who leads correctly. Now, let's start off by talking about what does it mean to be submissive. Excuse me. Well, let's say this. A lot of people have the wrong definition and understanding of what it means to be submissive. And everywhere in life, actually, is there submission and leadership. But basically, let's just say this. Submission is basically aligning yourself with the leadership of someone else because they have qualities that make them credible for that type of authority over you. So in the context of a relationship, we can say this. A woman submitting to her man is simply her being under the leadership of that man that she's chosen. And she's usually chosen that man based on his leadership, which is crazy that a woman would say, I'm not submitting to my man, when usually, if you're doing it correctly, you've chosen that man based on his leadership qualities. For example, him being taller, him having more money, him having more social and communication skills, him being stronger, all of these things, him being a protector, provider, these put him in a position of leadership because they are leadership qualities. So it would be crazy for a woman to say that she wouldn't submit. However, I do actually understand. I'm going to go into why I understand why women say that actually. Right? I actually fully understand and get why women would say that, which is why we're doing this video. But a lot of women also have the wrong understanding. They think being submissive means get treated badly. Some think that it means the man dominates you in a way which you don't like. Or even for some, it means being abusive. That's definitely not the case at all. Right? So what I told you is basically what submission means. Anything more than that, well, it really can just be boiled down to those things that we was talking about. Now, we talk about the fact that a woman naturally submits. Well, we can actually also say this is not totally true. Women are not naturally submissive, and they are at the same time. Well, every human in some way is submissive, men and women. Women generally actually have a rebellious nature, and practically every religion and almost every culture historically and in the world has known about this for centuries. It's talked about in religious books. There's an understanding that women are not naturally submissive. They're actually naturally rebellious. But because of that, it comes from the feminine energy being chaotic. And don't think of chaotic as a bad thing. It just kind of talks about the volatile nature of it. And don't think about volatile as being like, batshit crazy. It's not necessarily. It's just volatile in comparison to the stable energy of the masculine energy. Now, because of this volatile, rebellious nature of a woman, basically, nature wants that woman to find stability, which is why women seek out security. Nature wants, or Mother Nature wants women to seek out that stability through men who are supposed to harness the male masculine energy. So in doing so, she's going to find that her life obviously gets less chaotic and more stable. So she's actually in a way not designed naturally submissive, but she's also naturally designed to seek leadership that will make her submissive, but doesn't mean forcibly. We're not saying that. What it really means is he's going to show certain qualities, and usually he's going to show a certain energy that naturally makes her go, I can relax. I can let him lead. And that's the submission we're talking about. Now, a lot of women in this day and age will say, I don't believe in submitting to my man. But it's funny because they're going to submit in many ways anyway. And we're going to talk about the two types of submission in a bit. But we can say this. Well, since nature has put the responsibility on the man to be the stable energy, that's not just so he has power and he's the man and do whatever I say. No, that's actually so that it benefits the woman. So he has to have righteousness in his leadership. He has to have certain qualities that obviously benefits her, which is why she would say, hey, I'm going to submit to you. i.e., I'm going to follow your leadership. I don't think a woman should submit to a man who doesn't show leadership qualities. But I also don't think you should get with a man who doesn't show those qualities at all anyway. So you shouldn't be in with a man who isn't worth submitting to. But what I've really noticed is that women will resist this, but because of the dominant energy that, men naturally have, she'll submit in some ways anyway, even though she doesn't believe in it. So she'll half do it, and that's when you get women complaining about them getting taken advantage of and that stuff. That's why we never really talk about men being taken advantage of, because it's kind of assumed that, well, you're the dominant role, so how are you getting taken advantage of? Women generally are understood to be more submissive by their nature, so it's like, okay, we get why we should look out for them more. But many men, I realize, many men don't have dominant energy in this society, but still there are many men who do. And these men with dominant energy usually have the capability to get women to kind of half submit to them. It's like they're doing half the bit. It's like the aspect of submission and leadership should be, all right, the higher authority, he has the energy that's dominant, but he also has the logic of a leader. And many men don't have the logic of a leader. They have the dominant energy. This is usually like the toxic guy, the bad boy, stuff like that. And he has dominant energy that the woman finds attractive. But it's interesting because that can make a woman submit in a way, or make her energetically submissive or receptive to submission, but she won't fully submit because she can't fully trust him, because that man may actually be missing out on some components or principles of manhood, such as integrity, principles, honesty, and all of that stuff, right? Hold on. So you have to be more than just having dominant energy. You have to have dominant energy, right, that basically makes her energetically receptive to submission. But you also then have to have the logic of a leader, be in line with the principles of masculinity. You have to have, honesty, logic, and all of that stuff. It's like a structure you're creating that then the woman can attach herself to, and it makes sense through her attaching herself to it. She's submitting to that structure because it benefits her. But many men have the dominant energy, but they don't have the aspects of leadership. So the woman will kind of be submissive in moments, but she's not fully down for the plan or the agenda of that leader. It's kind of like with political leaders. We are in a submissive position to political leaders because they are setting the plan. Like, they are in that position, I mean. But we might not agree with their manifesto, so we're not fully submissive. And that's kind of what the woman's like. So it's interesting. Many men have the dominant energy, but they don't have the principles that make them a good leader, so they can't get full submission for the woman. So they're doomed to have chaoticness in that, because where she won't be submissive is where the man will be stressed. And when we think about it, right, his leadership is supposed to benefit both. So it also means her submission is to benefit both. Nature wants this. This is balance. So in return for his leadership, she will return with submission. And that submission, if that submissive energy is put through the structure that the male should have created, it's going to empower both of them. But there has to be that structure. So again, when we talk about if there is no structure, it's almost like they're on a small scale. In moments, the woman will submit, and it's kind of subconscious because it just comes with her energy. But if the man has this structure and it's more conscious, so that's subconscious energetic submission. But we have conscious submission where she literally says out of her mouth, he is my leader. I don't actually think you should be with a man if you can't explicitly say out of your mouth, he is the one leading her. He's my leader. If you can't talk about your man like that, in my opinion, you don't have a man. From nature's perspective, he ain't doing what a man's supposed to do. If you can't say out of your mouth, yeah, he leads, what is he there for? Which then brings us to the point of why women don't want to submit, because there's not many men worth saying this about. So there's many women that don't need a man in a way. Like, of course, naturally, you always will need a man. But socially and consciously, I understand why you say you don't need a man, because, well, what is the benefit for you? What is the benefit of you submitting to that man? And we're going to talk in a future video about how if that man doesn't set up a structure which is agreeable for her, she can't submit. Just morally, she can't, like, from a perspective of us, morally looking from the outside, she can't submit because she's going to put herself in a vulnerable position. It makes sense. If it's not going to benefit her, why would she do it? She's just going to put herself in a position where she can only bring on disadvantages. But you have to realize that all of this is out of balance. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a future video. So comment down below, let Reemus know if you liked it, like, share, subscribed, or even just leave feedback, because the channel's still growing, right? So peace. I'll see you in the next one.